return home after the Cherokee campaign did not bring rest, but it brought purpose. Peace on the frontier was never complete, but it allowed men to turn their attention from survival to community. Durham resumed the rhythm of family life. Texas itself was changing. As settlements expanded and populations grew, the need for order became more pressing. In 1848, the state legislature reorganized the region, forming Van Zant and Kaufman counties out of Henderson County. With this change came a practical problem. Henderson County required a new, centrally located county seat. In 1850, Durham was one of the men appointed to resurvey the county and locate its center. It was work well suited to him. He rode across the countryside with compass and chain, measuring distances, marking boundaries, and speaking with landowners. From his efforts, a new town took shape. It would be called Athens. Durham purchased several lots near the town center and opened a boarding house. The building was simple but sturdy. A wide hearth warmed the common room. Meals were plain but filling. Beds were offered to those who needed them, and conversation flowed easily in the evenings. Durham kept a careful watch over his establishment. Susan and the children helped manage the work. Meals were prepared, linens cleaned, and guests welcomed with quiet courtesy. The tavern became a center of community life, a place where news was shared, disputes eased, and weary travelers found shelter. In the evenings, he did not seek recognition. His satisfaction came from seeing the land organized, families settled, and peace maintained. When disagreements arose, neighbors sought his counsel. He listened patiently, offering measured advice rooted in experience. Through all of it, Durham's faith remained constant. Sunday worship was observed when possible, whether in a formal gathering or around a hearth. He reminded his children that land, business, and reputation could all be lost, but faith endured. As the years passed, Durham felt the familiar pull of movement once more. By 1855, opportunity and necessity combined to draw the family southward. Land in South Texas promised new beginnings. With the same resolve that had carried them from Alabama to Texas decades earlier, Durham prepared his family for another journey. Athens would continue without him, shaped in part by his work. Ahead lay open country once more, fields to break, homes to build, and the ever-present responsibility of frontier life. He had laid down his rifle for the moment, but the frontier had not yet finished with him. When Durham moved his family south in 1855, he did so with the knowledge of a man who had crossed frontiers before. The journey to Atascosa County, south of San Antonio, was familiar in its hardship, yet different in its purpose. This was no longer the restless push of youth, but a deliberate effort to secure land and stability for the years ahead. The countryside opened into rolling hills and broad stretches of grassland. Water was scarcer here, and the sun burned hotter, but the soil promised reward to those willing to work it. Durham selected a site for the family home with care, near water, and suited to crops and livestock. Building began at once. Logs were cut, stone gathered, and a hearth raised that would anchor the household through seasons to come. William and the younger boys worked beside their father, learning not only the skills of construction, but the patience required to see a task through. Susan oversaw the household, her steady presence binding the family together amid the dust and labor. Life settled into a steady rhythm. Days were filled with planting, herding, and repairs. Nights brought quiet reflection. Durham read from the scriptures, his voice measured and calm. Prayer remained a constant, before meals, before rest, and before difficult decisions. Though the region was less volatile than East Texas had been, danger was never entirely absent. Raids and lawlessness still threatened isolated settlements. Durham's reputation followed him south, and when trouble arose, neighbors looked to him for guidance. In March of 1860, Durham once again answered a familiar call. He joined Captain Tomlinson's company of Texas Rangers, serving from March 20th to June 16th, 1860. He was older now than many of the men who rode beside him, but his experience lent authority. Younger rangers listened when he spoke, observing how he moved, how he waited, how he chose restraint over rash action. These final months of ranger service were quieter than earlier campaigns. Patrols were routine, vigilance constant. Durham did not seek distinction. He served because the frontier required it, and because he believed order was a duty owed to one's neighbors. When the term ended, he returned home without ceremony. The years weighed upon him more heavily now. His steps slowed, and his hands bore the marks of long labor. Yet his spirit remained firm. He continued to work the land, to advise others, and to anchor his family in faith and discipline. By the end of 1860, the nation itself stood on uncertain ground. Political tensions deepened, and talk of secession spread across Texas. Durham listened carefully, but spoke little. He had seen conflict before and understood its cost. Still, when duty called, he had never turned away. The frontier had shaped him into a man of quiet resolve, one who did not chase war, but would meet it when it came. And once again, it was coming. On January 1st, 1862, at Sabinal, Texas, Durham enlisted in the Confederate Army. He was mustered into Company A, 15th Texas Cavalry Regiment. He was 64 years old, an old man. The other men looked up to him and respected his service in the Rangers. The 15th Texas Cavalry was assigned to Fort Heineman, also known as Arkansas Post, position along the Arkansas River. It was a strategic stronghold, and a vulnerable one. On January 11th, 1863, Union forces attacked. It was swift and deadly. Federal artillery battered the fort, and Confederate resistance, though determined, could not hold. The position fell, and the regiment was captured. For many men, captivity marked the end of their service. In April of 1863, the unit was released, but records show that several members, including Durham, were listed as absent west of the Mississippi for the remainder of the war. We truly don't know how he met his demise. We do know that Susan filed for his pension in the early spring of 1864. This was the real-life tale of an ordinary man leading an extraordinary life. Durham Avant. Born 1798, died around 1863. Who should we do next? Let me know down in the comments. As always, hit the like and subscribe buttons and smash that notification bell so you don't miss the next one.